Council, we have 1 minute. It's always fears these minutes are the longest minutes of my life.
And we are live.
Thank you. At 4 o'clock. Good afternoon and welcome to this emergency meeting of council that was called earlier this afternoon to address the grant money for the federal government related to the Twin Pads Arena project. I'd like to now call this meeting to order. Could I have approval of the agenda, please? And I'm calling it to order. Approval of the agenda is moved by Councillor Rollerman and seconded by Councillor Tilley, that council adopt the March 13th, 2025 emergency council meeting agenda as presented. All those in favor? There's a leader. That's carried. Thank you. Thanks, Derek. Okay. Are there any disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof? Seeing none, we will move on to item 4 discussion, grant money from federal government. Ashley, you'll clean this up later. From federal government Twin Pad Arena project. And Michael Play, would you like to speak, please?
Yeah, actually, not knowing exactly what's going to happen, it's a little difficult for me to comment. But I guess reading the tea leaves with an imminent federal election, and actually, not knowing exactly what's going to happen, it's a little difficult for me to comment. But I guess reading the tea leaves with an imminent federal election, and actually, not knowing exactly what's going to happen. It's a little difficult for me to comment.
I'm not sure why that's happening, Michael. So I would, how about Michael, I let you, is it Councillor, CEO McNeely?
Madam Mayor, maybe to assist Mr. Play and ensure that anyone who is watching today's emergency council meeting, maybe I set the table by giving some context as to why this meeting has been called on such short notice. Maybe assist Mr. Play and ensure that anyone who is watching today's emergency council meeting, maybe I set the table by giving some context as to why this meeting has been called on such short notice. Maybe that's Mr. Play and ensure that anyone who is watching today's emergency council meeting, maybe I set the table by giving some context as to why this meeting has been called on such short notice.
Apologies for these sound effects. We are trying to find out why. We think, Mr. Play, it might have been coming from your side. I'm not sure if you have the YouTube open. No? All right. Well, CAO McNeely, if you can continue, we'll work on that in the background.
So, Madam Mayor, members of council, public that are joining us remotely, yesterday afternoon, an email came from the Green and Inclusive Community Buildings Program. And this is a program administered through the federal government. In the fall of 2024, Township Council submitted a grant application in support of the construction of a net zero energy efficient arena project. And essentially it was to twin the arena complexes at the North Dumfries Community Complex to create a second ice pad. The grant application filing was in the amount, and I'm rounding my number, approximately 11.485 million toward a 20 million plus overall project expenditure. Excuse me. Yesterday's email, the government has asked for the end of business today direction from the township as to whether or not, if there was going to be a potential for the reduction in the overall grant amount. So as I indicated, we asked for approximately 11.485 million. They've indicated that if potentially the grant came in the amount of $5 million, would this interfere with, would it impact the potential delivery of the project going forward? So township staff have communicated back to the bureaucracy at the Green and Inclusive Community Buildings Program that the township's 2025 capital budget, as approved by council, was contingent upon securing the grant award. The township, we wanted to reinforce, is a small rural community, and the magnitude of the total expenditure is significant in the absence of securing the grant award. Based upon the funding model, the township, even if the full grant award of the 11.485 million was secured, was going to have to debt finance and secure significant contribution from the community in terms of a fundraising program to fund the entire project. The loss of the grant application request in the amount of 11.485 million would imperil the viability of this important community-focused project. The township, prior to the grant application being filed, actually went through an exercise of value engineering with the overall intent to try and scope the project, lower the overall capital valuation to bring it into a reasonable level that could be potentially delivered. The project was modified to account for the net zero arena obligations as set out in the federal government eligibility criterion. And we did that to demonstrate both a viable and a fiscal responsible capital undertaking on behalf of the municipality. And we closed by reinforcing that the project itself is net zero. The project is shovel ready in that we have tender drawings done and ready to go to the marketplace for competitive bid, and that this is an important community undertaking. So it is in that context that Madam Mayor has called the emergency meeting of council so that a wholesome council-led position could be articulated to the federal government through the Green and Inclusive Community Building Program.
Now, the reason the urgency is because we believe the writ's going to fall any second. And the money has to be given out, otherwise it's lost. So do we take 5 million with the hopes that we will eventually be able to build based upon the possibility of provincial grants that we just heard about for the steel, to keep the steel makers working? And then if we don't build, we give the 5 million back. I'd rather take the 5 million and then give it back because we couldn't proceed than lose the 5 million, because we will lose it. And if we give back 5 million, I think it's harder to go back to the pot and say, can you give us money now? But I need council's thoughts.
So, Madam Mayor, Mr. Clay has asked
Michael.
to appear as a delegation and to speak to the item. So perhaps the introductory context which we provided may assist Mr. Clay in his delegation in front of Township Council.
Well, it's probably no surprise to the council members as a representative of the CCG that I'm in support of proceeding with the program. There aren't going to be too many opportunities to get senior levels of government funding, at least probably in this generation, and with all the unpredictability that we're seeing out there. So our recommendation would be, as Andrew indicated, we've got a feasibility study ongoing for the community study that is will put together a good community fundraising campaign. We have I think we have room in our capital budget, not as it stands at this moment in time, obviously. But then, as I think Mayor Foxton has indicated, this does give us the opportunity to raise additional funds. But that said, I think also I'm going to push back to my contacts, the federal government, to say, why are you going only halfway? We're looking for the full amount. But that said, we're in support of proceeding in making a commitment. And once you say no to it today, I think it's all opportunities will be lost, at least for the foreseeable future. So it's now or never, guys. We've had this conversation for a long time. And I think it's important for me to just say that before you proceed. That's all I had to say.
And council, I didn't want to turn this down. Based on just a stalemate. So your thoughts, ideas?
Sorry, not entirely hearing you, Sue, at this point. We broke up a lot there. I didn't quite hear what you said.
Did somebody say something? I'm sorry, my internet's not stable. So
Sorry,
who's
Mayor.
spoke?
Sorry, Mayor. We didn't hear what you said there, and I'm sure it was important.
I'm sorry, I've been unstable internet. Welcome to the township. So I said, I need this discussion. Do we let $5 million go? And like I said, if we take it now, we can always give it back if we don't proceed. But if we give it back now, we're not going to get it again.
So I guess my first question, if I can raise it, is based on the fact that it's the question has been raised by the ministry that we are given the opportunity to accept the fact that we're not going to get the $11 million, that the $5 million is the only possibility being offered. That's I just like some interpretation in that from because right now it doesn't say, it says there's no obligation either way, funding either way.
CEO McNeely.
So, Madam Mayor, the question, and this is, I have never seen something like this presented through a government funding agency, let alone the 24-hour period in terms of a turnaround on such an important and significant decision. The exact question raised by the email from the federal government was as follows. Does your organization have the ability to complete this project should the amount sought be reduced from $11,485,631.50 to $50,000? And they're asking us
$500,000.
if we say yes, provide additional details. If no, please identify any changes that may enable the project to proceed.
So, I'm hoping you can hear me.
Yes, go ahead, Alita.
Madam Mayor, you were saying that there were some new grants from the province that you thought would, like, this is news as well. Can you,
CEO McNeely brought it up at our last council meeting.
okay. But that wasn't specific for arenas, as far as I understood.
It was for anybody using steel, and steel is one of the major project items for arenas.
Could you elaborate again, Andrew? It looks like you might want to.
The information I shared with Township Council was that there is the possibility coming out of a larger financial rescue plan for the local economy attributed to the imposition of tariffs, that there could potentially be targeted subsidies or grant programs. And I gave a wide range of areas, including income support to certain businesses that might be bridge financing, transition and retraining or reskilling opportunities for employees so they can move from one sector of the economy to another. And I indicated the possibility of targeted infrastructure. And I said an obvious would be the steel industry, given the significant implications that, for the most part, 30% of steel produced in Canada is exported to the US. And of course, because of the initial levy of 25% tariff, which is now in effect, and the potential for the stacking of an additional 25%, which the US government has signaled could be as early as April the 2nd, that the government may have targeted programs. There is no program today, but those opportunities in the big picture may form part of a rescue plan advanced by the government of Ontario, and would obviously be very fluid right now, not knowing all of the potential particulars or their economic outfall.
So if I understood the question that you asked, sorry, that you read out, CAO McNeely, the question was, would we be able to complete this project with only 500,000, 5 million instead of the 11 million? 5 million?
So the grant application was for 11.485 million. Their question was, could the project move forward if the amount was reduced to 5 million?
Currently, our only option would be either to fundraise or do debt to cover the rest.
Or apply for other grants, provincial grants.
That currently have not yet really come forward.
Other options available to Township Council could include go back and rework the 10-year capital forecast, effectively recalibrate priorities in terms of other potential deliverables. I'll use the word reallocate some of those funds to the twin pad to make up the difference, either in full or in part, and or potentially delay some of those projects in the capital forecast to a later time period, freeing up some of those monies and reallocating them to this project. There has been no analysis as to or discussion with Township councils to what that could look like to make up the difference of the loss of approximately $6 million in the funding envelope with the loss of the grant, and what those recalibrated priorities might look like. I mean, that's a discussion that council would have to, truly spend some time and look at.
Madam
Councilor
Mayor,
Goldman.
thank you. I think we should take the $5 million that's being offered, but I think we should ask staff to go back and slash $6 million off this project. Let's dumb this thing right down to bare bones, and we can always add in at a later date some of the extra things. Maybe we can get by with a more reduced, more basic version of an arena. And over time, as we get more money, we can add those nice to have items back in. I think we should have that discussion. And I know that Mr. Raycroft has spent a lot of time already value engineering the project, and that's been a lot of hard work. Maybe we need to be ruthless and just slash it, make it real basic, just a piece of ice with a roof on it. And down the road, we can add all the other things in. That's my thoughts.
So the money that came from the federal government has been allocated. Our share is 5 million. I don't think there's more available. I think the reason they gave us 24 hours is because the writ's going to drop. As soon as the writ drops, there's no money. No, everything's frozen. So I like your idea, Councilor Moore. I like looking at that option. I like looking at the option of grants from the provincial government. I don't want to close any doors yet. This closes the door if we don't accept it. But that's my opinion. I am only one vote. I need to know what the rest of you think. I know that if we take the 5 million, that doesn't commit us to the project. We can always give it back if the project doesn't proceed. If we give it back now, we're not going to ever get it again. Councillor Wilms.
How long do we have if we take the 5 million? How long do we have before we're like, oh, stuff it, we can't do this?
Is there a time frame, CEO McNeely?
So no, I mean, literally things are working by the hour. However, typically, and I will say typically, when there's a program, there's an actual agreement that has to be duly executed between the municipality and the Crown. We obviously don't have that, nor do we know even whether it's 5 million. That was just in their email, right? So let me work on a perhaps. Perhaps in the next 2 or 3 business days, there might be a formal announcement of an award through this, through the Green and Inclusive Community Building Program, with an award of X dollars. So for right now, we'll say 5 million. And the township would then be asked to asked to review and execute an agreement with the Crown. And before we would actually execute that contract, staff would be coming back to Township Council, because right now I've got a budget that talks about over $11 million coming through financing through a grant. And so, we would need to, if I follow Councillor Rowland's discussion, is there an opportunity for some additional value engineering? What does that look like? What is the gap based on our understanding of the market for the build, plus our funding streams? And then I would come forward with some scenarios of how to make up the difference in the shortfall of the funding. Then council would have to tell us whether or not, based on that recalibrated model, whether or not you wish to authorize the contract with the government, because typically there is, obviously the commitments, there's certain reporting milestones, and the money has to be expended by a certain drop dead date. And not knowing any of those particulars, I'm just going on a standard practice.
CEO McNeely.
Sorry, Madam Mayor. Sorry. I've had my hand up for a while.
Go ahead, Derek.
Okay, hang on. All right, can you see me now?
I can see your hand. Go
Can
ahead.
you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. Sorry, I'm where I am right now. It gets noisy at times, so I'm trying to squeeze in as fast as I can. I agree with Councillor Rowland in the way that we can't walk away from this project, but at the same time, maybe we can find efficiencies. But maybe CEO McNeely can clarify this. That doesn't mean we're 100% out of the $11.48 million. That just means, is there a possibility we can survive on $5 million? But again, I think we should take the $5 million, and if something comes down the line that we can't do it, as Mayor Foxton said, we'll have to hand that back. But I think if we try and find efficiencies and fundraise, and and this is the way communities work. You don't get what you want, you don't walk away. You just try and work harder to achieve our goal, and it's going to be all the more worth it if we can do that.
Councillor Williams.
So as I recall, we had to add a couple $1 million to the project in order to qualify for this green grant. So how would we be able to find $6 million worth of efficiencies and still qualify for the grant?
CEO McNeely.
So, Madam Mayor, Councillor Williams is quite correct. We took a traditional single pad arena with seating of approximately 200, 250 persons, and we dumbed down the building, and there was a value engineering savings of approximately $2.5 to $3 million as put forward by the work and effort of Mr. Raycroft. To qualify for the net zero classification, because that was a requirement to be eligible for the grant program, we then went to council and said, okay, we need now to take all carbon producing aspects out of this arena. So that changed some of the technology. And while in the longer term, there could potentially be some operation savings, it has some significant front end capital loading. And that was added into the overall budget, which brought us to that figure slightly over $20 million, which was the basis of the grant application. And we were seeking the approximate 11.485 million through the grant. So, you know, to maintain the integrity of the grant, we would still have to demonstrate we're net zero, because that's the whole point of the program. In terms of value engineering, you know, we could be looking at the reduction of the amount of seating. We could be looking at not putting in risers and just have a, for lack of a better term, a flat surface on top of the dressing rooms. And you would put in, I'm going to call them soccer style bleachers, you know, the aluminum bleachers. You may drop the number of dressing rooms. Right now we have 6 dressing rooms and additional dressing rooms for, you know, referees and game officials. You know, you might go with 4 dressing rooms as an example. Those might be some of the value engineering aspects that you would look at if you were to try and shave some dollars off. But we would not be able to abandon the principle of the net zero concept if we want to access this grant dollar, whatever that final amount may be, because that was the whole premise of the grant.
Councillor Tilley.
If with some permission, I'm at the point where I would like to just do this. It just helps me, but I'd like to summarize just for a second, just because it seems to make sense. Literally, we have the opportunity to still potentially get $5 million out of this with no commitment on our basis, other than we get to see what might come from it. If I'm being advised by the CAO and everybody else involved that if we want to proceed with anything that might give us anything, even just to see, we need to give a go ahead on this email or this approval, that I'm willing to say that, okay, let's see how it goes, and then we make a decision from there, because right now we're dealing with a lot of unknowns. That's my opinion.
And the only reason I called the emergency meeting was because the time crunch is today, and by end of business today, that we have to make the decision. And that's why I didn't want it to slip through our fingers. Councillor Wilms.
So we can truthfully say that, yes, we'll be able to do this project even if we only get $5 million?
No, not necessarily.
Because that's the question that the CEO has before him, if I understand correctly.
So, Madam Mayor, through to Councillor Wilms. Based on the way the current 25 capital budget is set up as approved, and the 10-year capital forecast, if there was a reduction in the funding envelope through the grant, we would have a shortfall.
Yes.
The discussion has been, not knowing yet what the grant award might actually be in terms of a true value, is a question mark. Okay. But let's work on the premise that it's $5 million. Council would be asking me to look at what other options or alternatives are available to make up the, I'll use the word, the difference, to allow a project to go ahead, and what are those implications? So, value engineering, further value engineering may be a possibility, dollar figure yet unknown. Increased debt financing above the current threshold of 6.8 million. What does that look like? What about rejigging certain projects in the 10-year capital forecast and reestablishing certain priorities by either dropping projects, modifying projects, or moving them further out in the 10-year forecast such that you free up dollars and reallocate them to this project, or a combination thereof. Also, potentially, time frame unknown, there may be other grant structures, provincially or federally, that could potentially be stacked on top of this initial award. Now, I'll be honest with you, given the time period that we're likely looking at, we're probably making a decision on a go forward in the next 2 to 3 week period. You know, as I said, authorization to sign that contract. So if council signals by a resolution today that you wish for the staff to reply in the positive, that we will work our way through this subject to a future decision of Township Council before signing a contract, staff in the interim would look at those opportunities, possibilities in the event that there's a shortfall in the overall award of the grant, and then council can make a more fulsome and informed decision in the days or weeks to come before we commit ourselves to actually signing a contract for the grant.
And we wouldn't be the first municipality that received grant money and then handed it back because they couldn't do the project. It wouldn't be the first time that's happened.
Do we need
That
a
hasn't
motion?
happened
Do we need a
to us.
motion, Madam Mayor? Do we need a motion?
Yes, we do
please?
need a motion. We do need a motion.
I would propose a motion, if I can find a seconder, that we accept this $5 million with the caveat that staff will do a deeper dive into the implications and the possible savings possible in this project.
I agree. Making sure that we look at all options available.
Mm-hmm.
CA McNeely and then Councillor Williams.
Madam Mayor, through to Councillor Rowland, can I suggest that you actually don't put the dollar figure in?
Sure.
And I only say that because I don't know the context of this email. Maybe they were fishing. The
Sure.
reality is, I think they're asking you, municipality, if you don't get the full amount, can you see yourself going ahead, right? You know, I think you would still say, you know, the townships developed a capital budget, a funding program based on the full award. I think you continue to be a small rural municipality, and this is a significant undertaking. But the township would look at, you know, bridge funding, alternative funding scenarios, value engineering, before making a final decision to enter into any contract on a grant award. But I wouldn't put a dollar figure in right now because who knows? We're one municipality out of, I don't even know how many countless across Canada would have applied for this program. And maybe there's other municipalities like us right now are going, oh my, not what we had hoped. How do we scramble? And you might find that there's others that are going to take the position, no, they're not going to go ahead. And that may free up some dollars that potentially could be added. It will never be more than 11.458 million because the funding threshold was no more than 55 cents on the dollar. But it might be something greater than the 5 million. As I said, this is very, very fluid right now.
I'm pretty sure another municipality is waiting to get our 5 million if we let it go. Councillor Williams.
So I'm deeply concerned that we're going to start loading on debt for this project. I think already 6.8 million is extremely high for a municipality and for a single project. And for that reason, I don't feel comfortable at all saying yes.
I don't think we're voting on debt. I think we're looking at all the options and saying, we'll take the 5 million, look at all the options. If we can make it work with other grants and other things, we'll move ahead. If we can't, then we decide then whether we're going to debt or not. I agree with you. I'm not going to take huge debt. But if we can still make it work, and shame on us if we don't look at all the options. And that's what I'm saying. We have to look at all the possibilities and all our options. That's our job. And then if we can make it work, we make it work. And if we can't, then we step up and we say we can't do this. Councillor Rolleman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I sent my proposed motion to the clerk. So if she wants to read it out, perhaps you can ask for a seconder.
Ashley, please.
So it's moved by Councillor Rolleman. We do need a seconder.
Just read the motion, please.
That council accept the grant that will be offered with the provision that staff continue to value engineer the project and explore other financing and grant opportunities.
That work? Sorry, can you read it one more
I'll
time,
second.
Ashley? Sorry. Oh, I guess I can read the original. Thank you. Okay. I see it.
Do you want to hear it again, Alita?
No, I think I'm okay.
All right. Do we want to, can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Tilly. All right, all those in favor? Opposed?
Sorry, I didn't get my video on fast enough.
Are you in favor, Councillor Austin?
I am in
Okay.
favor.
That's carried then. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for your time today. Life is never boring in the political world. So now we have the motion. We've had it passed. Councillor Ashley, we're good?
Yes, so we have that motion carried.
Okay, so we're going to the confirmatory bylaw, which is moved by Councillor Tilly and seconded by Councillor Wilms, that the bylaw number 3550-25, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of this emergency council meeting held on March 13th, 2025, be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed and signed and sealed by the mayor and clerk. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Very good, Councillor Osner. And now a motion to confirm, or the motion to adjourn. And this is moved by Councillor Rowland and Councillor Tilly, that whereas business before this emergency meeting of council has been completed at 4:35 p.m. and be it resolved that this meeting adjourn. All those in favor? Thank you.
Thank you.